Yo, what's good? What's good? What's good? I'm in finally. Oh my God. Uh, there we go. Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
How's it going?
It's good. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you as well too.
God bless it, man. I love your content. I love your content on Instagram.
I
Please feel
appreciate it.
free, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, most definitely. So my name is coolcolas, and I am an author, a writer, and an overall creative.
Yes. Emphasis on creative.
Mhm.
What kind of sparked and inspired? Because it's like, okay, I'd be like, because like a lot of people that come on the show are people that I've met before. Some people are people that have referred to me. I had to fucking reach out to you, bro. 'Cause most
Yeah,
people
sure.
kind of like they pussyfoot around the issues, man. Like Kwame Brown said it today so perfectly. This guy
Hmm.
was like, Kwame, you come off and you sound so angry. Like, don't you think you'll catch more flies with honey? And Kwame's like, I'm a black man in America. I've been racially
Yeah.
profiled. I've been arrested for no reason. I've
Hmm.
seen my brothers get arrested. He's like, how the hell would I not be angry? Like, what the hell you expect from me? And it's like, it's just
Right.
you're required so much to kind of pussyfoot around being a black man in America. You're
Hmm.
supposed to blame yourself, blame other black people. Not a
Hmm.
lot of people, and when you do that for generations and generations and generations, you
Hmm.
never get the earning, you never get the understanding that I should probably research into why are these people so butthurt that I'm black?
Hmm.
Why are these people so offended and so bothered by my blackness? And most people would never do it. They just keep self-hating blackness, self-hating blackness, self-hate. I think that was the first thing that kind of like sparked a speaking too, is that I kind of called it not on you specifically, but
Hmm.
just the whole topic of reparations. We're
Hmm.
just so much of us just required to, but you have found a way to kind of discuss this stuff for people that aren't aware or have not seen his Instagram page before and see what I'm talking about. You found
Hmm.
a way to discuss this stuff that's not only connected to nerdcore, which is the most intelligent black people that we're going to be able to probably meet more than unless they're into like rocket science and engineering or some shit like that. Um,
Right.
Tapping it into a medium in which white people can other people can connect to from different races and ethnic groups, but you're also hitting on the fucking issues with your captions, bro. Like it's
Hmm.
essays. It's not just like a few. It's like you're like you're connected in a way that makes me feel such a kindred spirit with you. I had to
Hmm.
have you on. I had to talk to you. So please,
Hmm.
it's the floor is yours from that point.
Yeah, most definitely. First of all, I want to say I appreciate all the compliments. That does mean a lot. Like just to hear that
You're
from
most
somebody
welcome.
who I've been following. Yeah,
You're
I've
most welcome.
I've great. Yeah, it's the thing about like my Instagram page is it started off as something where I was just talking about being a black male who was a writer and somebody who just wanted to give other black people a voice. That was like originally like what I wanted to talk about
I feel
when I
that.
first started the page. Yep. And so at some point I had a conversation with one of my followers who's kind of like a friend of mine now at this point, and he was like, I see like what you're doing, but I kind of want to see more of your passion and stuff like that. So at the time when he said this, I was like, what do you mean by that? But after that day, I realized he had a point because
Yeah.
there were times where I talk about pro-black things, but I wouldn't really relegate it to what I was actually doing my Instagram page. So my thing was like, why can I not take these pro-black values that I have? Because there's a lot of values that I have when it comes to like the pro-black scene, and then there's a lot of like things that I enjoy when it comes to blurred content. And I'm like, why don't I try to
Definitely.
mash the two together and I look at like the intersection of these issues? Now, here's the thing. A lot of people don't talk about what I talk about because it's either like a thing of fear or it's a thing of comfort. Comfort sometimes comes with fear, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. It's a thing of them like kind of just being just totally off code. Like they're just cool with being off code. So from my perspective, I've always like in my life have been like a very honest guy, a very straightforward guy, very big straight shooter. So I've also been very analytical as well too, and I like to look deep into things. I don't want somebody to just tell me something and then I just go with it. I want to know the whys. I want to ask questions. I want to kind of get to the bottom of things. So
Love
when it
that.
came to like blackness and looking at like the blurred space, I said to myself, there's a lot of like, disrespect and all the things that happen in like the blurred space and the content that I enjoy. So why not create a platform where I'm able to actually talk about a lot of those issues? So yeah, that was the big thing there.
Honestly, yeah, that's huge. I'm not gonna get too much into my personnel life,
Mm-hmm,
but okay, this isn't personal. This is directly
mm-hmm,
connected to what you're talking to, but I have to like formulate thoughts or ideas before they're verbalized. I got to find the words to put this in the context. There's this dude
mm-hmm,
on YouTube, this Asian guy who makes videos talking about like black people hating Asian people essentially. And I'm like, this is not a real issue inside the black community. And, like it
it's
might
not.
be if you're living in certain areas that we have Newark in New Jersey, we have Camden, we have Trenton. If you're living in like a poverty-ridden area, you might
Mm-hmm,
have complications on the basis of poverty and crime
mm-hmm,
connected to poverty, but the
right.
crime being directly correlated to being black, the
Mm-hmm,
aggression that you're facing being correlated to this person being black, and it's just a vicinity thing. You have Asians living inside of poor communities around
mm-hmm,
angry, agitated people who are angry at Asian people, who are angry at
mm-hmm,
the overall system of white supremacy that we're living in. And when you
mm-hmm,
are a Latino or you're an Asian person, and you are going instead of going into your roots as saying that I'm also not necessarily a victim, because you lose a lot of your power when you call yourself a victim, but I'm deeply
mm-hmm,
affected by European conquest. I'm deeply affected by white people deciding that their impoverished, crazy ass European culture of enslaving
mm-hmm,
Europeans for thousands and thousands
mm-hmm,
and thousands of years is
mm-hmm,
superior to people living and being free, and people living in abundance, and people having a natural connection to God
mm-hmm,
and Gaia and Mother Nature. I you pick sides, nigga, like you motherfuckers
mm-hmm,
are picking sides. You got some Asian people that are so cool, so down with it, and they know that they're Asian. They're not trying to be black. They're not
mm-hmm.
trying to appropriate our culture. But you got dudes
Yeah,
from Vietnam, you got dudes from
yeah,
Taiwan, you got guys from who are affected by the Cold War, essentially. Cool. But then you got those
mm-hmm,
groups of people that
mm-hmm,
Japan coincided with the Nazis. So it's like a lot of the European talking points, a lot of the Asian talking points, a lot of the Latino talking points, it's like
mm-hmm.
we're facing a lot of hatred that is internalized as, because it's like you talking about the blurred space.
Sure,
Part of the blurred space is anime. Part of that blurred space is being into, comic books and things created predominantly by white men. So much of our
for
media
sure.
is not created
Mm-hmm.
by us. So much of our
Yeah,
heroes that are black and dark skin aren't
mm-hmm.
created by black people.
Yeah,
This
definitely.
isn't really a question. This is honestly just an idea. you know?
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Like I
Yeah.
would like I'm trying to find a way to like put it in a question so I could like toss it back at you to deal with, but like it's really
Mm-hmm.
just stream of conscious, because the Asian kid, it's like when you first start listening to him, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is definitely we definitely need to listen to like Asian hatred, and but he's targeting at like the fucking black community and saying that black
Mm-hmm.
people hate Asian people. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I've never met a black man over the age of 18 who is not obsessed with anime in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yep. Yep.
Never. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and if I do, they have never been exposed to it before, and they are deeply
Sure.
affected by racism and white supremacy.
Yeah.
I wanna put in a question. I guess the only question I could like propose to you is like, have you ever heard of this dude before? I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
see real quick if I can find like his name, but
Yeah.
have you
The
ever
dude
heard of
doesn't
this?
sound familiar. Yeah, he doesn't sound familiar because I don't really know a whole lot of like Asian content creators who talk about that type of thing. Most of the time, like as a matter of fact, I only
Charlie
know of like one
Cheon.
that I listen to. I'm sorry, what did you say?
His name is Charlie Cheon.
Yeah, never heard of him. Yeah, what I was saying was I can only think of one that I actually listened to, and he don't talk about anything like that deals with social justice issues or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't really get to hear. I don't hear other
Mm-hmm.
cultures really
Mm-hmm.
talk about the only culture I've really ever heard talk about
Uh-huh.
civil liberties, social justice is Black people and allies of Black people. And that's
Yeah.
because what I said a little earlier, we look at what we've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
Europeans have done to us what they've been doing to themselves the whole fucking when how you the same way they overanalyze us for black on
Mm-hmm.
black crime and shit like that, even though the real
Yeah.
issue is white on white crime. White on white crime causes wars. Black on black crime is just good for news and tabloids. I mean, but
Yeah. No, no doubt. No doubt.
unfortunately, because it's just when you have a system of global white supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
the only real detractor to that, the only real component to oppose you is Black people. There's no
Mm-hmm.
other culture on the planet that's trying to act white. There's no other
Mm-hmm.
culture unless they're very blatantly identified as
Mm-hmm.
self-hating racists. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna say I actually can interject what
please,
you
no,
said. I
please,
kind
please,
of want to
please.
add on to.
That's what the space is
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. So the first thing is like I want to talk about your victim comment. I definitely understand what you're saying. What I always say is that I'm a victim of white supremacy because in a system of white supremacy, every black person, really every non-white person is a victim of white supremacy. But see, with my like platform and what I do with my page, I take that to an entirely new like level. What I do is instead of talking about white supremacy, I talk about anti-black white supremacy. And I put emphasis on anti-black white supremacy versus regular white supremacy because what I have found is that black people, and you could even go into like a cultural thing to a certain extent, even are by themselves when they come to the issue of dealing with racism and white supremacy and the things that have been done to our people. So I focus on that exclusively because what ends up
Yes.
happening is you end up adhering to this thing called benign neglect. I don't know if you've ever
Mm.
heard that term before,
It
but
sounds like willful blindness, but I have not heard that specific term before.
you're on the right track by saying you're on the right track. Benign neglect essentially is like this clause that was made that basically says that we know we act like white supremacists because I think it was like Nixon's people they actually made this if I'm not mistaken. Like they basically said we know we owe black people because of what happened with slavery and all this other stuff, but we'll say that we don't, therefore we don't. So like that's like a clause that was actually
Yeah.
made. And so yeah, so that's what I said, like willfully not doing something like
Damn.
you said. It is yeah, and that's the thing. And so one of the methods, the main methods of benign neglect that a lot of people do not understand is that you can take all these other groups. So if you take Hispanics, like white Hispanics, I'm talking about specifically, you take Arabs, you take Asian people, you take people of all different types of underserved.
Arians.
Yep.
The
What you do is
Aryans.
like, yep. If you take all these people who are just don't identify as like a white Anglo person, what ends up happening is you kind of generalize struggle. So whenever you talk
Mm.
about white supremacy and who it affects, now instead of the focus being on black people who have been the most impacted by it, have been the most disrespected, and have been the least people to have reparations at all made for them, then what it does is it flushes it out and it muddies the water. So now you don't have to focus on issues of black people. Now you can focus on his Latinx community. Now you can focus on the Asians. Now you can focus on the Arabs, and then you don't just have to focus on black. So
You're
in my
able.
platform, I'm like, we
Mm.
go on to black people specifically.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You're able to ignore the entire issue because what you're also bringing up there too with those groups specifically, the majority of those groups, this is something that for viewers, this is something that we have talked on the show before. I'm going to try to bring it up in a different context this time. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those groups also did not come here until after the civil rights movement, after
Right.
we and our ancestors and our not even our fucking ancestors, our parents and our grandparents. Like that's how recent this is for us.
Yeah, you're
Our
right.
parents and our grandparents fought for these rights
Well, I
and
think you're
fought
breaking
for
up.
this. I might be that it's see as the Zoom. I use StreamYard too, and StreamYard just
Uh-huh.
like so much better, so much better.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I couldn't even just like maybe if I like invested in Zoom Premium or something, but StreamYard for free, just far superior,
Yeah.
far superior.
Right.
Oh my God.
I feel you. I feel
But
you.
it's like all these groups but again, to cycle what I said before, it's like I'm not gonna say that they don't speak English. That's offensive. I'm not gonna like stoop to their level, you know. But it's like they might speak English, but they don't know American history. You have to literally, this is a proven fact. You have to get a master's degree to learn the truth of American history. That's how deep you have to go into our school system. Is that you can't just, it's like joining the fucking Freemasonry, essentially. So you got to be a 33rd degree Mason to understand what the hell this movement is about. You got to be a master's degree or a doctorate to understand what American history is about. Because up until
I
that
can
point, it's just deception. Up to that point, it's like history is basically
I can no,
utilized.
I was gonna say I can barely hear you, brother. I can barely hear you.
Let me
I think it,
hold on.
yeah, I see what you mean by that whole Zoom connection because I was kind of that because like I was trying to listen. I was like, wait, I think he's kind of breaking up. Like, I don't know.
See if I can turn this up too. So I
Yeah.
record like audio quotes and stuff like that. Are you good now?
Yep. I can hear you just fine.
My apologies for that. Damn,
No worries.
I don't want to repeat none of that. So
It's
I'm just gonna move forward like you understood the
all
shit.
good. It's all good. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about. It's all good.
Okay.
Hey.
Basically, I'm ranting it. All I really want to say, because I don't want to offend anyone that's watching this, but because it's not for me, it's not about them. You know, you put it
Mhm.
perfectly. It's specifically about what white people have done and
Yep.
these
Mhm.
trickonomic. I think that's the
Mhm.
proper word for it. They're just trick. I
Yep.
want to say trickery of the devil almost. That's honestly what comes to mind. Is that it's like it makes sense. It makes sense. What's
Yep.
these niggas is atheists. It makes sense. I don't mean nigga as in black people. I mean nigga as an ignorant motherfucker. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So many of these motherfuckers are like on
Yeah.
this fucking, and it's like the same shit that we're dealing with. I say prisoner of war. That's how
Mhm.
Neely Fuller Jr. puts it, and that's what coincides a bit more with me because it's I'm overcoming
Mhm.
this shit. When I was born in my generation, we beating up the white boys, we beating up the Asian boys, beating if anyone that stands against this shit, we fighting you.
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
that's just how we grew up because we grew up
Yeah.
with white people calling us nigger. I grew up fifth grade, white people calling you the fucking nigger. You're 5 years
Mhm.
old, white people fucking making racist jokes to you. You're in the
Yep.
second grade, third grade, white kids telling you jokes. I'm in the third grade, white kid telling me the joke. How many months does it take for a black woman to have a baby? Where the fuck you learn a joke like that at fucking 8 years old, 7 years old?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
You
saying?
know, I wanted to interject real quick on what you just said there. It's
Feel
and
free.
a lot of people ask me the question of like, how did you kind of get into like this whole racism talk? Like, how did you start talking about these types of issues? And what I always tell people is, I've actually been experiencing like racism to some extent since I was 11 or 12 years old. And because like when I went to elementary school, I went to school with like basically all black people, so I didn't really experience racism. At that point I can't. But like
Mhm.
when I got into middle school and high school, I definitely experienced it real heavy. Being called certain
Did you go to a
names
different
and
school district or something?
no, like here's the thing. I went to private schools like my pretty much all my life until college. I went to a private elementary school
Nice.
in Detroit, and then I went
That's
to a
amazing.
private private middle school and high school in Detroit as well too. But it was
God
just
bless your
totally
parents
different.
for that, man. That's man, that shit just broke my
And
fucking
my
heart.
mom, yeah, yeah,
It's like you really do your best to put your kids in a better area, in a better situation, and they just
hmm
gotta deal with hating ass motherfuckers, man. Like I hate that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing too is like you when you're younger, you don't realize that what you're dealing with is racism. You just think it's just an asshole or it's just somebody who just
Or you
is
blame
like talking a
yourself.
bunch of shit. Yeah, and yeah, that too. But you later find out, like, it's anti-black racism. Like, because looking back, I'm like, dang, I went through a lot of different things that were related to racism. I didn't realize that's what I was going through at that time because, like, who teaches you that growing up too? That's the other thing.
Their
Not a lot of people
parents.
have parents that do that. That
They
they
do.
don't do
They
that though.
do. They do.
Mine didn't. Well, my
Our yeah,
mom did not.
our parents don't. Black parents do not prepare their kids for America. Black parents
Mm-hmm.
prepare their kids for either for the America that they, because my
Mm-hmm.
parents are from the South, for the shit that they went through, or they prepare you for how they want the world to be.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
don't prepare us for the reality that we are facing.
For
And
sure.
that's like a major disconnect. We got a lot
Mm-hmm.
of black capitalists right now in an age where the American dollar is completely falling apart. We're about to
Mm-hmm.
we get it. The black people get on the fucking capitalist train at the behest of a recession, going into a depression. Now we're talking. It's like it's a flawed. We just keep chasing the tail of whatever white people are doing. We
Yeah, yeah,
obviously need our own culture. We need our own belief system. We need our own
for sure.
connection to God.
For
It's like
sure.
we are looking at our entire, because I grew up in a white
Mm-hmm.
community my entire life. I
Oh,
went
really?
to public school. I grew up in the first few years of my life, I grew up in East Orange, all black neighborhood. When I turned
Mm.
4, we
Mm.
moved to the suburbs. From the ages of 4 to the ages of 18, I lived
Mm-hmm.
around all white people, all
Oh,
Jewish
wow.
people,
Mm.
all ex-Nazi supporting Asian people, shit like that. Asian
Mm.
people whose families were displaced because of the Cold War, so they came to America. But when they
Mm-hmm.
came to America, they didn't come with an anger in their soul. They came defeated,
Yeah. Right.
sad, and deflated. They didn't come
Yeah.
to America to fight the revolution. You have to be an American. I think that's another thing too, is that when immigrants
Yep.
come here, they teach their kid. It's like you're going over to like a person's house for dinner. You have
Mm-hmm.
to behave to their rules. You have to add. We don't get taught shit like that.
No, we don't. No, no, we don't.
It's
You're
like
right about that.
because we want justice. It's
Mm-hmm.
like we're not in a position where we can just. I personally feel I don't feel like I'm in a position where I can just be like, you know what, buddy, what you guys did is okay. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fuck
Mm-hmm.
that. If someone just threw a fucking ball through my window, broke my glass, that fucking glass is still on my floor right now. No, I ain't
Yeah.
getting over this. You ain't even ringing the doorbell to come get your motherfucking ball back. I'm
You're
sitting
right.
right there looking at you. You looking at me. You got another
Mm-hmm.
ball in your hand, ready to throw that motherfucker too.
Yeah.
Ain't no goddamn place. I'm like, nah, man. The last 250 years of American history,
Mm-hmm.
the last 1,000 years of European wars and Roman wars with Northern Africa,
Mm-hmm.
forget about it.
Yep.
Forget. And it's like that's what all these motherfuckers are. All these motherfuckers are on that type of shit. That was so long ago. My mom ain't that old.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
I'm just
Even
saying, like they telling me a story. My dad's like 60, maybe
yeah.
63 or something like that, 65.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's not that old to me. My
Yeah.
grandma
No.
was like my grandma was like 95 when she died, 94 when she died. That's not
Mm-hmm.
that old to me. Like she was alive. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
centuries ago in a planet far
Mm-hmm.
away. It's like, no, this shit just happened.
Yep. Yep.
Just happened. And I
Yep.
just don't understand where they think
Still going. Still
it's they
going
don't
on.
it's
Yeah.
global racism, white supremacy, it's global
For
slavery,
sure.
it's a
For sure.
global economic. That's why when you look on Instagram too, and you
Mm-hmm.
see people from different cultures on Instagram, you're not
Mm-hmm.
looking at Asian people with dark skin. You're not looking at
No.
Asian people. You're looking at Asian people trying to be white. Sorry
Yep.
to put it that way. Sorry to say it that way. You're looking at
And
like,
there's an interesting
go
thing
ahead.
about that. I wanted to. Sorry about that. I was gonna
For
say
it,
there's
dude,
an
you're the
interesting thing I wanted to
guest.
bring up.
They listen to me all the time. We're here to listen to you.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. What I was gonna say is that's another thing about like Instagram is like the algorithm. They know that there's a lot of like black creators that are out there who do want to talk about some of the things like I talk about. And so one of the things I actually wanted to bring up when it comes to like my platform and my page is I kind of like style my content in a certain way where it gets to people without it being like shadow banned where nobody's able to find me. And what I usually do is I do what Instagram is basically designed to do. It's designed to tell a story with pictures. If you ever notice with my posts, like picture collage, So
Yeah.
there's no way to really tell that I'm talking about something that's blatantly and like about like anti-blackness or about like black empowerment. You can't really tell until you read my caption. Then you read my caption, you're like, oh shoot, this nigga is going in. Like that's the first
Yeah.
thing everybody's gonna say when they see it. And I do it that way on purpose because the idea is for people to kind of get the picture as they're looking at the image that I post with the caption that's there. Because what I noticed is that like if you go on there and you start posting some like stuff about like, for example, you know how people always talk about like the you know, I'm not gonna say it on here because you like if you post it somewhere they're gonna
I
try to
got
like
you.
do stuff to your page. But I see people talk about that and immediately there'll be like a banner at the bottom that says, you know, for more information, click on this, yada, 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 yada,
Yeah.
or they'll say something about false
You're
information
worried about
or something
self-harm.
like that. Yep. And they do stuff like that. So they try to find ways to either shadow ban the creator
Or
or to
discredit
make their
you.
content seem not credible. Exactly. Exactly.
I
So
go
I
through the
write
same
mine in a
shit.
certain way where that's not happening.
Yeah, it's like we have to go through all these loops and all these like
Mm-hmm.
backflips to just discuss what's actually happening to us, you know? That's like
Mm-hmm.
the most tragic part. It's like the shit we're actually going through. Versus you
Mm-hmm.
have all these women on the internet talking about their dream man that doesn't fucking exist. You got-
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
can we talk about this? Can we like please just like we got like oh fuck, time is going crazy, man. We got like 27:45. I'm an English guy, I'm not a math guy. Was that like 15 minutes? We got a little bit
Mm.
more. Can we talk
Oh
about
dang.
this Willie Lynch ass generation? Why is this whole fucking generation Willie Lynch's letter? What the fuck is going on that no one read this shit? You got the feminists and you got these fucking red pill motherfuckers. What the fuck is this shit? Like, it's just
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
me, the red pill, blue pill shit just seems like
Uh-huh.
house niggas and field niggas. The
Yeah. Yeah.
feminism shit seems like
Yeah.
us niggas and feel. Why is every like to me as a black man,
Mm-hmm.
everything looks like slavery. Getting a
Yeah.
job looks like slave.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like I need to connect because I'm like, is it me? It's
Yeah,
like
no, it's not you. And I want to comment on that. It's not you, brother. And I'm gonna explain what's actually going on. That actually is white supremacy in the works, but these are like the after effects of what happens.
yeah,
So they like to a lot of times, and this is why I talk about it as far as what happens in media. What they like to do is they like to portray certain images that show that there's some type of divide in the black community. So essentially what happens is men and women are essentially become at war with each other. Now they do a couple different things to make that happen. You know, it's not even just portraying it on media. It's also happening in real life. I mean, like think about it. There was a time where it was just like, you know, men making the money basically and women basically taking care of the kids, and that's just how stuff was. And then we got to this
I
point
don't think
where,
that ever existed.
well, that's here's the
I
thing
don't
though.
think
That was
that's
the
even a real thing. I think people
it's
just
not.
lied about it. I think people just
Yeah,
lied about this shit. Maybe if you
what I
were
was
rich.
gonna
Sorry, please.
what I
I'm
was
sorry.
gonna
Go ahead. Go
say.
ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you know, you're good. I was gonna say, well, here's the thing about it though. There was the point I'm trying to make is that there was a point where you had men who were masculine and you had women who were feminine, and that was a norm and that was a thing, like even in like a black community. And so what I think what they did in like in white society was they started trying to promote feminism and all these other things. And if you put the black man in prison, and you do all these things to him so that he's depowered, he's not making wealth, he's not respected. You know, a lot of that stuff is kind of comes really, if we're being honest, from like slavery. So that woman is not respecting that man. Now, what's end up happening is like you have men and women who are pretty much in the black community at war with one another. So then it kind of goes into this what you were talking about, people talking about the red pill, blue pill thing, people like talking about their issues with black women, people talking about the issues of black men. That's because like that was a white supremacist thing that was put into the community. And I see those images a lot of times in media, like with the things that, you know, like I talk about. And I'll give you one big example right now. If you look at the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie, that was a prime example of black male erasure. And it was a way to divide the community. And here's why. Because if they put a bunch of black women in the community, it looks like they're promoting a bunch of black women like they want to see them more on screen. But then by not putting black men in there, what are they going to do? They're going to make other black men watching it frustrated. So if they say, hey, why is there not black men in here? The black women at some point are going to interject and they're going to be like, well, what's wrong with us being in here? So now guess what? We're fighting.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole psychological
Women
thing.
King back to back. Yeah, absolutely. It's programmed. It's a systematic design.
Yeah.
But what I mean though about it not being real, it's not like from an anthropological standpoint. This isn't from like an American history, because Americans are very wrapped up in being in America and American life, and they don't even understand American life at all sometimes. The majority of the world lives in poverty. There is no one on this planet. There's never been any time period in human life in which women and men were not working. It doesn't exist. It's unrealistic. It's completely impractical to unless people are willing to admit that a segment of society was living in enslavement to women for quite a long time in human history. Unless they're willing to admit that, and then they're willing to give up the arguments of women oppression, they're not ready for that argument. So we have to stick to what is commonplace and what's common sense. Everyone has been working this entire fucking time. Everyone's been working. We have not had a financial system for more than about 600 years. So you have to account for 600 years. That's only 600 years that people are talking about men working for finance. You have the entirety of human history when humans are not working for money at all. We're not accounting for the actual way that humans exist on this planet. They're only accounting for during European conquest. But even then, if you look at the effects of European conquest, if you look at actual European history, the majority of European history is Europeans enslaving Europeans. It's 20% owning everything and living as the aristocrats. And I would guess and imagine within that place, maybe in aristocratic European households, the man would work and the woman wouldn't work. But that's also unrealistic because the aristocrats owned land. They owned businesses. They owned property, which they weren't doing shit. They weren't working. They weren't laboring. They weren't doing anything on it. And men and women were both working. So it's just like they've created, to just coincide with the whole thing of men and women fighting, they've created a completely false narrative that I don't remember this because I wasn't a kid, but I like heard stories about this directly from the horse's mouth of my grandparents. Once again, both my grandparents from North Carolina. When they were kids, both my grandparents were sharecroppers. My grandfather paid off that debt. He brought his whole family up north, and then they came up north thinking shit was going to be different, and it's worse. It's worse in New Jersey than it is in North Carolina. So it's like when I say this shit, I'm not saying it from the standpoint of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking. I'm saying it from an academic standpoint, from an anecdotal standpoint, from the standpoint of a firsthand resource of two people that lived through it. Both my grandparents were sharecroppers. Both my grandparents were working. That's the golden age we're talking about, the 60 to 50 shit like that. Both of these people had to endure during the Great Depression. I don't understand I don't get the mentality of any of these Americans that they don't understand the reality. Like, we have never lived in the best country on earth. We have never lived in a golden standpoint of financial prosperity, or slavery wouldn't have been necessary to begin with. White people lied. They lied. And now that you have a few white people that can work 8 hours a day, which is impractical, even to 2023, working only 40 hours a week is impractical. For the
I
people
agree.
working out there, you got people working 60 hours to 100. So it doesn't just ignore the issues that Black people have, because Martin Luther King wasn't just assassinated for Black. Martin Luther King was assassinated for demanding reparations and for demanding that we adhere to the destruction of capitalism. You know, capitalism is a fucking enemy. Racism is the enemy. Feminism is the enemy. Hating women is the enemy. Hating gay people is the enemy. Grooming kids or pedophilia is the enemy. All these things, anything that takes away from me, the labor rights movement.
You broke up again.
I'm sorry. That's the devil work hard to stop you when you try to make some progress, bro. You try to do some shit, the devil will really be out there trying to fucking stop you. We got 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The floor is yours for as long as you want to go.
I think I'm losing you, brother.
I don't know what to do. I'm be honest. I don't know.
All right.
Let me check my internet connection. Connected,
Yeah.
secured.
Let me check mine too, just to.
I think it's just Zoom, bro. I'll be real as fuck. I think it's just Zoom. I
I
don't have
believe
these
you. Yeah.
I don't have these issues on StreamYard.
Yeah. No, I believe you because like I was gonna say because I looked at my connection, mine's is fine as well. So yeah, you're probably right. I think it is just Zoom.
I don't or I'm working on the toaster. I could be doing
Yeah.
it too. But
Yeah.
we got
I
about
just want to make sure
five
I was hearing
minutes.
what you were everything you were saying. But yeah.
If you watch it back, you'll hear it then. Hopefully, God, fingers crossed.
You're right. Yeah,
But
man. What I was gonna say is that like the thing is the system of white supremacy tells a lot of like half truths. They lie about certain things. They tell the truth about certain things, and they do that for a certain reason because that's the way to maintain control. Because what
the
a lot of
truth
people don't understand
doesn't
about
work in their favor. I'm sorry to
yep,
cut you off, but the
yep,
truth does not work. If they told the
mm,
whole truth, it would not work in their favor. It's like catching your girlfriend lying.
yep. Mm-hmm. Well, that's
God
what I
damn.
was gonna say. Is that the point of half truth is to fulfill the mission of white supremacy, which is to not necessarily like eradicate everyone, but to control a mitigated amount of people. That's what a lot of people don't really understand about it because they think it's like, oh, it's this thing of like trying to kill off every person who's black. Not necessarily. It's about control. It's about
Exactly.
controlling a smaller population of them. That's why the half truths are told. So some people can buy into it. Some people could, rebel against it. Some people could, just do nothing and they'll try to transcend it. That's the point of
You
it.
gotta People need to understand how well
Yeah.
orchestrated America is. Simply the military for the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Britannia, the Nazi Empire. This whole thing is a recreation and reconstruction of Babylon and Rome. Rome itself is a
Mm-hmm.
reconstruction of Babylon. So it's like they've been doing this for thousands of years. This isn't some
Mm-hmm.
shit they just started doing when they got to Africa. This isn't some shit they
Mm-hmm.
started doing when they got the Hebrews. They've been doing this shit for thousands of years to each other. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like we look at it as if
Yep.
this just started in 1600. How did they do it in 1604 if they weren't doing it since
Mm-hmm.
the 1400s, if they weren't doing it since the year 1000? I
Mm-hmm.
implore
Yeah.
any black person to really study European history and not to fall in love with Europe, not to desire to go to Rome or to Paris or some shit like that, but to really
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
understand where the fuck did they develop this mentality from? And then you would see
Mm-hmm.
this is just how they live. This is just and you feel
Yeah.
bad for them. Not like feel bad for them that you want to forgive them, but it's like pity almost. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
damn,
Yeah.
this is the only life y'all
I
know.
get that.
Like seriously, this is
Yeah.
how
I
they
definitely get that.
and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, man. Because it's like for us, all we gotta do is snap out of the loop. We just gotta realize we've been lied to, snap out of it. You live your life a little
Mm-hmm.
bit differently, and then you can conquer. You know,
Yep.
for
Yep.
them, what did they do?
Mm-hmm.
You admit that you're still
Yeah.
slavers and rapists and thieves to this day and age. You admit that your entire foreign policy is the exact same
Mm-hmm.
things that you say that you condemn, but you're doing on an annual basis. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we recover, we heal, we forgive our
Mm-hmm.
parents for whatever they had to go through. We treat other black people better.
Yep.
It's not a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel bad for them in the sense that I want to like pat them on the back and give them a hug and marry them, but like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
at
But
least we
you
got
pity
someplace to
them.
go from here. Yeah, at least we got
Yeah.
someplace to go from here, man. Like this shit
Yeah.
looking up for us though.
Yeah. No, no, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah, the thing is
We
that
got
like
1 minute left.
y'all shoot. Okay. Well, I'll wrap it up then. But
It go by
basically
fast. I'm so sorry. And the plus I talk too fucking much. I'm so like
it's all good. No worries. No worries, no worries.
I'm working.
Yeah, we could have another conversation. It's all good.
Absolutely. How can people find you?
People can find me at Colas Creative. I have an Instagram page that you can go to with that tag. Same thing with Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube at the Pro Black Blurred Kingdom podcast. I also do have my own podcast at all major platforms, except Apple right now, kind of like, trying to tweak that out. But other than that, yeah, you can find me in multiple places.
If you have any closing thoughts and ideas, please share them.
If you are a proponent of justice and you are someone who likes to see content talking about white supremacy, anti-Black white supremacy, and blurred media, definitely follow me